Well, I trust that everybody is all set up for the celebrations of this season. But I'm going to I'm going to be working on unpacking, if you will, Capricorn, because yesterday was the winter solstice. And because of that, I'm going to just look here at that particular chart and discover some flavors of what it is that Capricorn actually can mean, and in its initiation process at this particular time of year for us in the northern hemisphere and for those in the southern hemisphere, what might be at work energetically that is setting in motion this new moment. We've changed hats. Sagittarius hat is taken off, Capricorn hat is put on. And so there's a statement that I ran across, in part of my shamanic studies where engaged with a particular shaman thing and going through whatever the process is required for that particular thing. And all of a sudden the shaman turns and says, "Where's your mountain?" And you kind of, huh? My mountain? The energy, the signature, if you will, of Capricorn is, it is a mountain, the energy of us aspiring to greater heights of awareness. This is that mountain climbing process that Capricorn really can stand for. And those of us on the northern hemisphere, it's like we get a little bit less time for each hour of the day at this time of year to actually survey the horizon to see, what is the appropriate mountain that I need to be climbing up. You can climb the wrong mountains, by the way. Or maybe it might be more appropriate to say that as you're climbing any mountain, the energy is asking you questions like, do you feel that this is appropriate? Is there a good Capricorn word? Is there still an avenue to integrity that is available to you in this particular climb? If you sense that this isn't the case, perhaps you're not on the right mountain and you need to choose another one. What is it, that is that inspiration that is driving you in the particular quest that you are on? From the southern hemisphere perspective, maximum daylight. Lots of time to go out and check lots of different mountainous terrains to see, what are the options that are here that might facilitate how it is that I am going to evolve my version of the integrity equation. Just looking at the chart, I did for all you whole sign advocates out there, looking at a whole sign chart, slightly different than the intermediate cusp houses that vary, which are really good and effective for looking at individual charts. But, we're doing the shotgun approach here. So here it is, 0 degrees of Capricorn. That sun is almost about to rise above the equation. It's 8 o'clock in the morning here. By the way, I am in the northern hemisphere, so shorter days. But you look and you say, okay, we got Capricorn in the first house, this expression of self, which is the first house, has got the solar vitality there, spinning options of how to be or how to utilize that Capricorn part of us. We each have it. We all have a Capricorn part in us, and so this is Capricorn saying, hello, are you paying attention? And you say, well, let's see. How's Capricorn pay attention? Through its ruling planet. Well, its ruling planet is Saturn. Saturn's down here in the third house in Pisces. So as we begin this solar dance from darkness, heading toward light, and then again back to darkness in next year's winter solstice, the initial energy, that Saturn part of the equation is down there in that third house. Curiosity. There's curiosity in the discovery of self. Who am I? I'm curious about that. Well, this Saturn down here in the third house it's a Pisces house, So you have to really ponder questions that merit some depth in that equation of trying to ferret out who am I and what might be the best way for me to facilitate expanding upon that, growing my integrity through that third house energy. Now, what other things does the third house stand for? Third house is our siblings, brothers and sisters, short trips, the basic rudimentary level of education. There's a mental quality to it. Yet, in this particular chart, for this particular equation that we're going into for this next year, that Saturn is in Pisces, So the question of, basic rudimentary education is really not the aim that we need to focus on. It's more an in-depth look, more the why of the facts that are presented to us as being the educational format to follow. Why is 2 plus 2, 4? Why is 3 times 5, 15? Or perhaps more deeply, why is it that I sense there's a version of reality that I might be missing out on, that Spirit keeps trying to tap me on the shoulders and say, hello, are you awake yet? These are questions to ponder in the discovery of who we are from our Capricornian parts. If you look at the chart, the second house in any chart is values. What is and what isn't worthwhile? What is the economic benefits to what it is that I'm initiated in? I'm initiating a Capricorn consideration. The value of something in this particular year we're going into is it's an Aquarius value. And what does Aquarius have to say? Aquarius says, well, how much energy am I willing to put into something that I would like to have, keywords for the second house, I have, in an Aquarius fashion, it's kind of like changeability really needs to be part of the equation. I can have something, but that Aquarius has more of a kind of a sharing quality to it because it has to do with group energy, friends, the experience that, when something is of value, it's a value of more than just to myself. It has value to the whole in some senses. Now we look and see what planets are currently doing the Aquarian dance. Well, the recent addition of Pluto, right here in Aquarius, 0 degrees of Aquarius, says that for this coming year, because Pluto's going to be in Aquarius for another 20 years, the question you have to ask yourself is, how willing am I to dive deeper into my quest for ownership? Am I willing to, get down into the deep, dark, possibly dirty areas of my quest to, uncover things that, perhaps have been hidden from me, and in that, might I find, that treasure that is just right for me. And in an Aquarius fast, and there's always some eccentricity at work. And because of the eccentricities, the kinds of things that, tickle our fancy, I'm an Aquarius, by the way, may not be the same kind of things that everybody else is interested in. No matter. That's the way it is. And for all of us this particular year, that Aquarian leaning into what is it that I value is in play. But look, what else is there in Aquarius? Venus is in Aquarius. I look real quickly at my chart of dignities and I see Venus is in terms. It's in the term. So that means it has some dignity. Well, Venus, what does Venus stand for? Well, one thing is value. There's a good Venusian term. In the second house, which normally you would say, well, it's a Taurus house. Well, in this case, it's not a Taurus house, it's an Aquarius house. And, the leaning is probably more specifically inclined toward, how beneficial to others or the group is possession that I'm interested in going to be. And can I, in other words, might there be a potential for sharing in what it is that is of value? We're going into a rather unique time in the history of humanity. When I think of values, the equation that kind of tweaks me just a little bit is that at the current rate of consumption here on planet Earth, the requirement right now is that we need 1.6 Earths in order to satisfy that quest for things. That's 160% of what it is that we currently have on Earth. Therefore, value, it's changing. What the current dance that we're on, unsustainable. We don't have another 60% of an Earth to be able to draw upon. We just have this one that we're living on right now. Can you feel that maybe I don't need as much as I thought I needed? And perhaps the system, the commercial system of selling things and selling things and selling things ad nauseum is unsustainable, that perhaps the idea of making those sales isn't the right way to go. Making things last longer, tapping into an aspect of our being that it supports, a little less our ability to survive and thrive. My word behind me on the plaque that I made. Okay, let's go to the third house. Third house. Oh, yeah, we have our ruling planet Saturn, and we also have Neptune, which has a very strong affinity to Pisces. So we see this arena of, what is the learning equation, the basic learning equation that for this year going forward is in play? Well, Saturn and Neptune. We have the potential of, you know, setting up boundaries. That's what Saturn does best. And Neptune, which is essentially boundaryless. It's setting up an avenue of, exploration, if you will, that doesn't have time or room for boundaries to get in the way. So you can kind of see that as we go into this next year, perhaps this is a kind of a quandary, you know. The realm of Pisces, which has no limits and is the potential to investigate the deeper meanings of life. Neptune, you can kind of see, has a little bit more of a sway, if you will, in that explorative process. And Saturn, not to see it just as restrictions, but to make sure that the process that we're going through is meaningful. Saturn requires meaning. Remember, integrity does or do the things that you're interested in inspire that quality of integrity within you. And integrity is not just a personal thing. Integrity means that as you interact with the experience of life, what you are doing, equally touches everything and everybody that you interact with. That's where integrity really gets its value from. Fourth house is home. We got an Aries home ruled by Mars. Mars is up here in retrograde. In Leo, it's going to be going back into Cancer, which has home quality to it, but it's not there yet. And when we think of the Mars equation as far as what does home mean right now? Well, Mars is in the eighth house, so it says that might there be factors of mystery afoot? Is there a curiosity, if you will, to look beneath the surface? And I'm particularly using that because of a forming opposition between Pluto down here and this Mars, the two rulers of Scorpio. They're approaching an exact opposition from each other for the second time across this Leo Aquarius axis. And I think the appropriate term might be tension, which is a good term when you're considering oppositions. And these are the two rulers of Scorpio. Basically, perhaps at odds in one way from one another, but they're the two rulers of Scorpio. So even though they might seem like they're at odds, what they're doing is they're comparing notes as to, Pluto says, how deep do I want to dig to expose what's been buried and bring it up to the surface? And Mars, impulse and action. In Leo saying, is there a way that we can make a splash with what it is that we discover across this eighth second house axis? There are matters of value that are on the table that perhaps might require some adjustment. What is and what isn't of value that is being pondered right now. Well, how long do you think we can continue to maintain our consumptive ways here on the planet when we're using up 1.6%? No, 160% of what's available. It runs out pretty quick when you really think about it that way. So when it comes to home, one of the things that you see adamantly expressed around the globe is that, there really isn't enough housing to provide everybody with, particularly the lifestyle of we in America. Oh, goodness, no. So many countries have, people jammed together in small holes of, existence that they have to say, this is home, this mud hut that the 20 of us live in. Yeah, we have elbow room here in the United States in our houses. 160%, anybody? Things need to change. You can kind of feel that. Chiron, the wounded healer. Chiron lived in a cave. It's where he did most of his work, exploring, investigating different methods of healing technique. And for us, the home right now has this potential wounded healer nature to it. Is this idea of home a healing kind of energy? Or might you sense that there's a potential woundedness in it? That's an essay question. You have to answer this yourself. Look around you. This is a time of year when people set intentions, set up, their druthers of what it is that they want to make their next year like. Clearing the decks. There's a good idea, And I don't just mean throwing it all away. Who needs what it is that I don't need? Do I have too much? Likely. I am in America, after all. We get to our fifth house, our children, our offspring. This is flavored by Taurus. I'm going to ask you to, reach deep within your capacities and ask yourself, from a Taurian perspective, how tuned into this planet, the only one we have, are you aware of? Because Taurus is Mother Earth. It is our communication factors to and with her. Do you think that in some fashion she may be getting a little miffed, fed up, if you will, of what it is that we humans do and think about this natural environment that we live in? Fifth house is creative space. It's putting on a show, if you will, making an expression that's overt, out there. And we're being asked right now, this year, as we begin, to make sure that we include in that outward, overt expression an appreciation for this planet upon which we share with so many other living beings. Can you feel that? Sixth house, This is a quest, in a sense, to get things organized and, utilize to the best of our ability the means of production. It's Gemini is the flavor for this. You sense possibly there might be some questions, curiosities, if you will, about the effectiveness of how we're utilizing materials to do things and make things on this planet. And, are we sharing them or not? The sixth house, that Gemini thing. Gemini is ruled by Mercury. Mercury's over here in the 12th house. Things in the 12th house can often be said to be hidden. But in this particular case, which I talked a little bit more extensively about last week, we have a T-square forming between Mercury, Jupiter, and Saturn. See this nice triangle here? So the energy of Mercury is being, brought into an equation that says, from a Saturnian perspective, am I being practical with what it is that I am trying to accomplish? From the Jupiterian perspective in Gemini, am I thinking in a large enough way to be inclusive of all those that I am providing service to? There's another sixth house consideration. And Mercury in the 12th house saying, how deep do I want my thoughts of the Sagittarius large capacity of what is possible to be ingrained into this Saturn, Jupiter, Mercury dance that's coming into formation. During this week, Saturn and Jupiter will be exact, and Mercury will only be a couple of degrees away. This is the energy that's at work as we begin this year, tying in our curiosity, Mercury, with that larger vision of capacity that Jupiter brings about in Gemini to spur the curiosity on, and Saturn saying, make it practical. And in what way do we want to make it practical? In a Pisces fashion. What are the deeper, profound meanings of life in this equation that need to be included into this consideration? Cancer in the seventh house for this year. That means the moon is equation. How do we interact with other people? I have a suggestion. Bring them home. Cancer is home, after all. And the home is, rightly used, a very good collective arena within which to consider things. The moon is up here in Virgo as we begin this dance this year, in that ninth house. Virgo is a sign of, well thought out processes. And the moon, how do you feel about your well thought out processes? And can there be an effective way to bring people together within your version of home to be able to compare notes? Our eighth house, the land of mystery, investigation, a process of, shared resources, if you will, with Mars in there. Mars, by the way, Mars is going to be doing an interesting thing this year because it's going to go out of bounds, I believe, on the 28th or the first of the year, maybe the 31st, will go out of bounds, and it will be out of bounds until early April. That's a long out of bounds cycle. So it's an energy we're going to consider. I will consider it more as we get into the beginning part of next year. But, you know, it's retrograde right now. So as we're starting it out this year, our Mars curiosity about what is mysterious is basically, reconsidering, if you will, because it is retrograde, a way to, in Leo fashion, be able to, touch, if you will, upon the hem of the mysterious, upon the processes of what does it mean to be in a shared resource environment. Remember, 1.6 times our Earth capacity of material resources is what is currently being used. Do you sense maybe that there needs to be just a little bit more sharing? Yeah, that's right. The larger picture, the ninth house, a version of, what else is there? And trying not to contain oneself with a version of that is limiting. The moon is there. Can you feel an expansion of your heart capacities that the moon represents there in Virgo, saying, I really want to be of service, Virgo. In any situation, I find myself in the collective, the moon. And how large a picture is required of this painted version for this to be able to unfold in a sustainable way for humanity. 10th house. This is normally the Capricorn house. The collective version of, leadership. We have Libra on the flavor for this house, ruled by Venus down here in Aquarius. Might there be a version of governmental interchange that has more of an inclusive version of what it is that we have come together to manifest? Libra says, yeah, we need a lot more of that, trying to separate people by whatever categories are being used really doesn't tap into the soul level of who we all, each and every one of us, are in that core place. It's very significant that we change the version of what the governmental factors say is underway. That seems to me very limiting. And the whole idea of, we want more of what we have, so we're willing to go to war with you so that we can make sure that that's the case. Not sustainable. War is not sustainable. It's one of those economic manipulative tools that basically takes the resources of the planet, destroys them, changes them in ways that are very difficult to come back from, and kills people. Not sustainable. Scorpio is the flavor of the 11th house. How is the energy of what is willing to transpire when we come together with others? Scorpio is saying we need to, in some fashion, be able to find a commonality of our shared resources. As we tap into the mysteries of life and consider that, everything dies in some fashion. After all, Scorpio is about living and dying and being reborn. And we get this question when we come together, we're all heading that same place. We're going to die, but are you going to die well? What is it worth to you at the group level to be able to find a commonality of shared resources that is, enfolding, inclusive of one another in this game and the dance of life that we're all about, so that we're not at each other's throats all the time. And when we finally come around to our 12th house, Sagittarius is the flavor of this. Mercury's on board. If I were to propose a soul level investigation at this time, which, 12th house has probably as much, if not more, capacity of being able to invite, invent, enfold, if you will, a zone of awareness that really puts us in tune, in touch energetically with all of life. Not just here on the planet, but, we're talking about being here on the planet. After all, Capricorn is an earth sign that initiates each year. And we have to ask ourselves, am I in tune with this Mother Earth that I have been given the privilege as a soul being to come and steward? Am I taking care of it? Mercury, it wants to say something about that, which, I'm drawn to say something about that. And in a Sagittarian fashion, not to hold back. I know there's a lot more potential of what it is that we have to share with one another in this living process. So that's what I'm going to look at for this week. Next year should be an interesting year. That first 4 months, almost 4 months of Mars being out of bounds as we go into the year, we're going to feel some pressure that our normal level of drive may take us on, safaris, if you will, into arenas that we haven't been into before or for a long time. And, can I guarantee that they're going to be comfortable? No, as a matter of fact, I would be more inclined to guarantee that we're going to feel some discomfort in what it is that's transpiring, because there are factors afoot begging for us as human beings to change our direction. The 1.6 planets worth of material goods is not sustainable. So the key to thriving is to be able to, in some fashion, cut back, curtail, if you will, on how much do you actually need to consume. There's only so much to go around. We can do this. So Merry Christmas and almost welcome to 2025. We're going to be doing a different dance, I think, this year than many suspect. Be prepared. Thanks. See you all next week.